Oh yes, very happy to take questions.
Tony, if obviously we'll call her Mrs. Globe. Who? If she is prepared to do a deal, and obviously they purport to want to build all these houses for the benefit of the community, but then on the other hand they're prepared to sell the airport to you if the money's right, surely that would not they look at that on a detrimental way, the planning? Because to me it's a bit of hypocrisy. You put all this forward, you're going to do all this for the community, but if we get a good deal, we'll sell it to you. I just wondered how it would be viewed by them.
Don't put words in, don't tempt me. I didn't have any alcohol before standing up, so it's just as well. All I would say is this. The rules say that if we ask the planning inspectorate to exercise compulsory powers on our behalf, we have to be seen to have done our very best to negotiate a deal with the present owner. It's for them to decide whether we've done our very best. We think that the present owner is trying to say we, in quotes, messed them around in some way, whatever the wording is, and we say £12 million on the table backed by money held by our solicitors and a willingness to negotiate further is evidence of good faith. That's as much as I want to say.
I've got a question, yes. It's really for everybody's benefit in a way. You mentioned about Airbus and potentially recycling aircraft beyond their useful life. I'm guessing now, but I would anticipate that if that were to happen, Manston probably couldn't handle more than 40 aircraft a year. It's a lot of 40 aircraft, it's a few every month, isn't it? That's a lot of aircraft to tear down. But even on that basis, we're probably talking about recycling something in excess of 250 million, which is a fairly large sum of money. I was asking the question so people understand the sorts of sums of money that are involved in aircraft. And we're not talking about 10 or 12 billion or something like that. It's quite a large sum potentially, just that one item.
Yes, I think 40 aircraft a year would be very ambitious, to be honest with you. We've looked at to do recycling in the way that's described in the Airbus letter takes about 6 weeks for every narrow-bodied aircraft, and we're only going to do narrow-bodied aircraft. There aren't enough wide-bodied aircraft to justify building bigger hangars. So each one takes about 6 weeks. So you could do roughly 10 a year. If you've got 2 bays, which we're planning for, you might be able to do 20 a year. What our plans allow for is a certain amount of flexibility, so that if there isn't enough recycling work coming through, we'll be able to do MRO, maintenance and repair as well. The problem with the market is that it's a bit variable. It depends on market conditions. You get periods when mid-life aircraft get retired because they're worth more in bits than they are as operating aircraft. You then get other times when they're not, when there's a demand for second-hand aircraft by people who can't afford to buy or get the credit they need to buy new aircraft. So we've designed it to be as flexible as possible, but we haven't, and we placed some reliance on it in our business plan, but not a huge reliance. And what I thought you were going to ask is about Brexit and Airbus. And the answer is, I don't know whether they would still invest in a project in the UK. But what we have done is satisfied ourselves that there's enough demand generally for recycling of aircraft, whether it's Airbus or Boeing, to justify the investment needed.
One further question on that. Was there any suggestion that the parts removed could be recycled, re-engineered, recertified locally? Or is that just hypothetical?
No, there is. I mean, again, we haven't been to this far enough, but I think at the time Airbus was saying it probably couldn't be done locally, but they would want it to be done locally through recruitment, education and training, because it obviously makes it more efficient to do it locally. And there isn't enough of it done at the moment. The market in Antonio aircraft sales in used aircraft sales is not as strong as it should be, because properly certified spares are not always available. John.
For the benefit of people who are here today, can you...
Sorry.
For the benefit of people who are here today, Can you tell us how business investment relief, sorry, my mind went out. Business investment relief works. Thank you.
Well, hypothetically, if you were Dr. John Pritchard and you were a non-domiciled UK resident, I mean, you are Dr. John Pritchard, if you were a non-domiciled UK resident, in other words, you lived here for some of the year, but you had your permanent home somewhere else, if you brought profits into this country that you made elsewhere, they would be taxed at a standard 45%. That's the advice we've had. Our investors are indeed resident, non-domiciled people. So they live here, but they're not permanently domiciled. In 2012, the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, decided that it would be a good idea to encourage as many of these people, and they're all high net worth individuals who choose to live in the UK for some of the year because it's a good place to live. But it would be a good idea to encourage these high net worth individuals to invest in the UK. So he introduced business investment relief in the budget of that year. And under business investment relief, if you are a non-domiciled resident of the UK, you are allowed to bring profits that you earned abroad into the UK, not pay tax on them, if you've received prior approval from HMRC, and if you invest in an approved project. And an airport infrastructure is an approved project. So what our investors did was they went to HMRC and sought permission to do this. They were accepted, they were subject to a due diligence exercise, and they started bringing their money into the UK. It is subject to an annual return, and will retire you if you're late making a return and you don't tell the truth in the return. The penalties are horrendous, which is, I think, what Mr. Rothwell told the last examination. And the position as far as their tax is concerned is they bring their profits in from abroad, they don't have to pay tax on those profits, they invest them into a project like ours, and they only pay tax when the project starts to make money. That's been quite successful. And that's, it was I think a clever idea at the time. There was all sorts of stuff in those days about all these wealthy foreigners living here, and the idea of the Treasury was, well, let's see if we can encourage some of them to invest in this country. That has not happened here. Now, the rule is you have to make full disclosure to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. I mean, total and full disclosure, but it's confidential. There is no rule that you have to actually then publicise your name to the general public. So here we have a collision of public policy, if you like. We had one moment the examining authority saying we need to know exactly who the owners are going to be, and on the other hand, HMRC saying, well, we check these people's credentials, they supply reports every year, and we are comfortable for this investment to take place because it's an investment in UK infrastructure. So that's a long answer to your question, and that's why we find ourselves in this slightly strange conundrum. But I say again, it is private money, and it has been approved by HMRC. Yes.
Bearing in mind the vast size of the Northern Grass as we know it, are there plans to use that for breaking aircraft up because it's got a huge capacity?
No, absolutely not. You heard what Mr. Groom said in his letter. Modern aircraft teardown has to take place airside in secure conditions. Secondly, it has to take place under cover. So, forgive the shorthand, the kind of step-to and son type arrangement they used to do in Northern Grass just would not be acceptable anymore. It has to take place under cover. That's why we're only doing narrow-body planes. We can't build a hangar big enough for 747 and so on. It will be inside the fence on the main part of the airport. Is that it? Oh, Gary.
Well, I was only going to say, Tony, as you know, I worked for Atlanta, and back in the day, very amateurishly, I grant you, we tore down 5 wide bodies amongst them, and all the parts were, because as Tony said, once they get to a certain age, they're worth more in bits than they are as a complete aircraft. And my company that I worked for at the time, we tore down 5. And then they did sell all the parts, and it was all done from locally. And they also we had wheel and brake shops. We had a slide shop. So this has all been done at Manston before. And it was all obviously giving local employment to people that had skills. So there's been a history of it in the past. There's no reason why it shouldn't be done in the future.
Yeah, and all of those people are still around, like you. Some of us are getting on a bit, but we've said they're all welcome to return if they want to.
What about companies like AEM and company the other side of Manston, I can't remember what the name was, don't they do engine?
They do engine. They don't do. They can't do.
Yeah, no, I mean.
Avman, you mean? Yeah.
Well, don't they do engine reconditioning or anything?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
are they in the market for any of the parts, or is it something to be found?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think Avman, who were already on the airfield, who occupied the hangar before, the old modern jet support hangar, they would happily go back into that hangar and start doing aircraft dismantling there while we wait for the new hangars to come through.
In this AEM, they do hydraulics, I believe, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And are they?
You know, we've said to everyone local, the more the merrier. If you want to come back, this applies to TG Aviation, to Polar Helicopters, to everyone.
This may sound like a silly question, but if the Prime Minister changes and the new Prime Minister wants to go ahead with his idea of what should we call Tracy Island, would that affect Manston?
He said he's going to drop it.
Oh, he's going to drop it?
He's going to drop it. He's not going ahead with it.
Look, I've been warned by our lawyers not to get involved in politics. The rate of the temptation is, all I would say is that the likelihood of Heathrow meeting its timetable, set of deadlines, seems to me to be so unlikely. And we're talking about, I don't know, 10 years plus before anything else happens.
Oh, wow.
And it's in the next 10 years that our opportunity will occur, you know. So,
I'm hoping that's true, because the taxiway goes straight through my building, where I work. I like to say that.
you mean the Heathrow one?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
right.
runway is right behind my building.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, they got tunnel under the A24.
There was a radio discussion on during the week that someone he hasn't flown for 40 years because he doesn't agree with flying, and the new runway that's going to make him not fly for evermore. And then there was someone else, she hasn't flown for 10 years now because of flying. She goes to Torquay for holidays.
Well, the good news is Boris is actually our MP. And he said he will lie down in front of the bulldozers and start building the new runway.
Yeah.
So we're like, come on, bring it on.
And I mean, on a serious point, the other thing is, if you look at Heathrow's plans for the new runway, they're a phase, and you will look in vain to see that anywhere in the early phases there's any opportunity for freighters. Clearly, they're going to take passenger aircraft as a matter of total priority, and in their position I do the same. Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Oh, sorry.
No, not a question.
Okay, can I sit down now?
Yeah.